You walk around this building and everyone is so supportive and so excited about what is happening with the Fever.
Additionally, a statement made in Indianapolis remains a topic of continuous discussion within the basketball world. The Fever's general manager, Amber Cox, finally spoke up. Her comments about Caitlin Clark also went beyond a corporate press release. It painted a picture that most fans have never seen because it was straightforward, honest, and packed with facts. There is more to the reality about what's truly going on within that company than what you've read in a headline. Hold on tight because this is a multi-layered story. Each layer will also change how you see Indiana during the Caitlin Clark era. Before we even talk about what Cox said, let's go back to the beginning of this whole problem. When Caitlin Clark, the first overall pick in the 2024 WNBA draft, left the stage, nobody could have foreseen what would unfold. The basketball community was well aware. Records were broken at the University of Iowa, the most well-liked athlete in women's sports history. Millions of people bought tickets, bought jerseys, and watched. Instead of just choosing a player, the Fever were taking control of a movement. Expectations, criticism, and pressure that most franchises never experienced came along with that movement. This was known to the front desk staff, but knowing something in theory and actually experiencing it are very different. Caitlin Clark had a fantastic rookie season in 2024. She averaged 19 points and led the league with 84 assists per game. She oversaw a Fever team that had advanced to the postseason in both the first and ninth seasons. She was named Rookie of the Year. She was selected for the WNBA's inaugural squad. She also set records for viewership, ticket sales, music, and jersey sales. When Indiana came, just the Fever's jersey sales went up 1,193%. The arenas were completely packed out. Networks were clearing prime time slots. In women's basketball, it was unheard of. A 22-year-old young man trying to learn how to run a professional club while taking on the responsibilities of an entire sport was tucked away in the locker room amid all of this chaos. Caitlin Clark. But everything was in jeopardy when an unforeseen incident happened for the 2025 season. Everything was supposed to come together. The new coach, Stephanie White, implemented a revised offensive plan. Veterans were brought in. The roster contained more players. Expectations were really high, but on almost the first day of the season, the injury bug started to bite. Caitlin Clark also sustained a left quad injury in May. A left groin injury happened in June, and the wound didn't even heal. Then on July 15th, just as she was about to return, she sustained a right groin injury. And with that one, it was all over. Game after game, she was spotted on the sidelines dressed in street clothes. Supporters were agitated. Loud critics were present. Rumors about her health, the team's communication, and the actual state of affairs at Gamebridge Fieldhouse were rife on every possible platform. Then there came the September 4th social media post that made everyone in the basketball community stop scrolling. Caitlin Clark confirmed that she was done for the year. "Disappointed isn't a big enough word to describe how I am feeling," she replied. The season was over. She had only played in 13 games, but nobody was paying enough attention to this at the time. The Fever's general manager was going to say something far more important than most people realized. Amber Cox didn't mince words as she took the microphone. She made it clear that Caitlin Clark had complied with all requirements in order to be allowed to return to that court. In exit interviews with the crew, Cox stated, "No one worked harder than Caitlin." An executive defending the brand wouldn't say things like, "Nobody wanted to be out on the court more than Caitlin." Those are the words of someone who has witnessed a player fail due to no fault of her own and battle through rehabilitation on a daily basis. According to Cox's official written statement, Clark tried to make a return by working out for hours every day. She went on, "There simply wasn't enough time left in the season for her to safely return." Amber Cox made it clear that long-term health will always take precedence over a risky comeback, saying, "So, the organization decided to shut her down, but the injuries have nothing to do with Cox's most inflammatory statement. It had to do with the future." Things start to become intriguing at this point. When asked about the future by reporters, Cox did not hedge. When talking about potential or possibilities, she avoided using unclear terminology. She looked them in the eye and said she thought they would see Caitlin Clark soar to new heights when she returned in 2026. Cox said, I think we're going to see another level. It's unthinkable to even consider. Take a moment to consider that this is a player who averaged 16 5 points and 88 assists per game in just 13 games during an injury plain. For the second year in a row, he was selected to the All-Star squad. Even though she only played a little portion of the season, she nevertheless dominated the national debate about women's basketball. And the person in charge of the team claims that she hasn't even touched a completely new piece of equipment yet. It's not a public relations statement. The rest of the WNBA should take note of it. However, Amber Cox's confidence was boosted by more than just Caitlin Clark's skill. She also disclosed another aspect of Clark's handling of her time on the sidelines. This is the section of the narrative that sets Clark apart from the group. The majority of elite athletes go dark when they are hurt and unable to compete. Sometimes you see them at games. After giving the audience a wave, they vanish into the training area. Caitlin Clark didn't do that. And Clark was on that plane for every road trip the Fever took while she was sidelined due to injury. She was on the bench during every game, encouraging teammates in real time while being outspoken, involved, and focused. During a period when most players would have quietly accepted a smaller position, Cox referred to her as a terrific leader and teammate. In a podcast interview, Kelsey Mitchell, who scored a career-high 22 points per game and took on the offensive load while Caitlin Clark was out, acknowledged the anger surrounding Clark's timing, but stressed that getting her back at 100% was always the best course of action. Kelsey Mitchell stated, "I've had a lot of injuries because I'm a person who's had 11 surgeries. I see things differently now that I have that perspective." It was no coincidence that Clark's influence was altering the squad's operations despite his incapacitation. The more you look around the Fever's locker room, the more you realize that they have a genuine chemistry that no front office can match. Teammates talked about the Trace Letches, a close-knit group that included Clark, Lexi Hull, and Sophie Cunningham. Players discussed Clark's pre-game routines with Aaliyah Boston, even as they watched from the bench. When asked about the culture before the 2025 season began, Kelly Krakoff, president of the Fever, said that the young core had made one specific request. They objected to the front office pursuing a major celebrity signing. They wanted their locker room to be secure. The players' exact words were, "Protect the culture that we've started." You see, a team that is crumbling inside doesn't speak like that. That is the rhetoric of a group that knows what they have and does not want it altered. But not everyone has been ready to accept them. And because of the scandal surrounding this locker room, everything was in danger of collapsing before it had a chance to breathe. If you were watching the WNBA in late 2024, you remember the moment Cheryl Swoops lit a match on Gil's Arena. The Hall of Famer intimated that players were uncomfortable with Caitlin Clark's attention and said that there was a great deal of strife within the Indiana Fever group. Swoops said there's a lot of other stuff going on that players are like, "This ain't where I want to be." On the internet, the claim swiftly gained popularity. It was one of the most talked about stories in women's basketball for weeks, complete with debates, screenshots, and opinions. There was just one problem. When asked about the specifics, Cheryl Swoops admitted she wasn't in the locker room. There was no evidence. No player co-signed the story. During a different March Madness show in April 2025, Caitlin Clark directly addressed the rumors while seated with Sue Bird and Diana Taurasi. "The folks within that facility were the only ones who truly knew the reality," she stated, recognizing that people tend to assume they are aware of what occurs behind closed doors. She implied that the commotion had less to do with anything happening in Indiana and more to do with those who were successful. Then in 2025, the Indiana Fever's on-court performance in the absence of their idol was more powerful than any news conference. Think about what Indiana accomplished over the season without Caitlin Clark. They won the WNBA Commissioner's Cup for the first time in team music history. They defeated the Atlanta Dream in the first round of the playoffs. They defeated the Las Vegas Aces, one of the most prestigious teams in the WNBA, in overtime after advancing to a winner-take-all Game 5 in the semifinals. Their first trip to the WNBA championships in over a decade was just one win away. All of that without their most important player. On every bench and sidelines, Clark was yelling encouragement, assigning defensive tasks, and celebrating each basket as though she had made it herself. Amber Cox's evaluation of her leadership wasn't just favorable. It was accurate. The numbers, results, and spirit of that run all indicated a franchise that had internalized it. Even if Clark was unable to demonstrate her intensity on the court, things start to become serious at this point. Because the Indiana Fever, led by Amber Cox, are hoping for more than simply a comeback season in 2026. They are hoping for a possible dynasty. The lengthy negotiations between the WNBA and the Players' Union, which lasted more than a year before being resolved in early 2026, caused the whole off-season to be compressed into a few weeks. The Portland Fire and Toronto Tempo, two new teams, had their league rosters changed by expansion drafts. Despite the Fever losing 2 players in the process, Cox maintained his composure. Her message was consistent from the season's conclusion to every roster change that followed. Keeping Kelsey Mitchell in a Fever uniform is their first objective. "I'm going to sound like a broken record from last year," Cox told reporters. Keeping Kelsey Mitchell in a Fever jersey will be the top focus. With Mitchell back in the running and contracts already in place for Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston, Indiana will have the most complete core in the league heading into the 2017 season. Even so, the basketball community didn't recoil because of the headline. When Caitlin Clark made an appearance as a special contributor on Basketball Night in America with legends like Carmelo Anthony, Vince Carter, and Tracy McGrady, even Amber Cox was overjoyed. Cox wrote on social media, "This will be very insightful and entertaining. It comes easy to me to tuck CC." NBC executive producer Sam Flood described Clark as the most renowned figure in basketball, not collegiate or women's basketball. Stop completely. Clark is now working on such platform even before the May 8th start of the 2026 WNBA season. Furthermore, when asked about the Fever's chances of winning the championship on that NBC platform, Clark answered right away. "I think we're going to be the favorite to win it all," she said. The media had little influence on that reaction. "It adds a little pressure in my opinion, but that's what you enjoy about it. However, our team, coach, and support staff are all excellent. I'm very excited." That individual had been silently developing and simmering in desire while watching from the sidelines for an entire season. And now she was ready to release everything she had been holding inside. And Cox's confidence in that Caitlin Clark's appearance. This is why the entire scenario worries the rest of the WNBA. This is what the whole image tells you when you stand back and look at it clearly. Music. Amber Cox didn't just speak up to calm her fans' fears or handle the bad press after a lackluster season.